new show. The virus will come for you. Today is February 26, 2020. Big story, virus. The virus will come for you. The virus is coming. You cannot stop it. They say maybe you can stop it, but no. You cannot stop the virus. The virus will come for you. It's true. Very true. The fascism has come for you too. And it's fun to watch, isn't it? You see, he says, Roger Stone, you not go to jail, not long. I don't like how long you go to jail. So you don't go to jail. Robert Stone, you not go to jail. You get virus instead. The Supreme Court says, it's okay. You shoot them, it's okay. You go, you shoot across the border, they die. You say, that's okay. They can die. Whatever, man. The virus will kill you too. The Democratic primary. They fought. They say, you, no 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 you. Is there a moderator here? I don't know. The virus will come for you. That is true. We know that. The DNC is all powerful, cannot run a primary, but whatever, they don't even do it. We talk later. The virus will come for you. The Parasite has come for you too, best picture. 219. They say, you got way too much money, you got no money, you just die. You dying? Drive me. No. The virus don't care how much money you have. The virus will come for you. I talked to the senator. I said, you should do this. He said, I will do that. And I said, oh, I probably should have said something else. We'll talk about that after the virus comes for you. And the religious freedom said, beat, hit, die, freedom, what? The virus don't care about your religion. The virus will come for you. And who knows where humans come from? Nobody knows now. It's all gone. All right. Don't do that. Let's turn this off. How do we turn it off? Oh yeah, we do this. Man, we should really figure out how this thing works. Maybe we'll just do the whole thing with the googly eyes. Yes? No. How's it going, Case? All right, there we go. Bam! All right. Welcome back to it, folks. Folks, senor, good to hear from you. See you again. Decided to do a full show again today. Oh yeah, I guess that's just the frame. Anyway, my teleprompter that I'm not using, obviously. The virus is coming for you. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I still don't know how to do this very sneakily. I need a producer, I think is what they're called. Anyway, so a number of things to talk about this week. Today is episode 91. We're still doing this for some goddamn reason. Dang it, I can't. I'm going to try not to cuss so I can promote this one. But it's tough because this has been a little while. It's been about 3 weeks since our last show. Today is February 26th, 2020. The coronavirus and this month in fascism. The Spaceship Earth. Everybody knows we're on our spaceship here. We're dealing with this. We're all here together on this spaceship, folks. We don't share this. We're not alone. It turns out that the way that we reproduce and create new humans, which is with our DNA, includes some interesting things. And there's other, you could kind of call them life forms that also exploit this and use our bodies to create themselves. And they look at us as kind of spaceship humans, and they use our spaceship to travel around the planet and infect other humans and continue to live. These are called viruses. There is a new virus, the coronavirus, and I'm sure at this point you have heard of it because it's been big news. The president talked about it this evening. So this came out in China. Again, this is pretty much, it's odd because it's called COVID-19, as in 2019. Because it broke out in the last few weeks of 2019. However, in that time since, and we're now again about 2 months in, with the way that this thing spreads, It seems at least worthwhile for me, and I've been saying this, to look at it in fortnights, which is every 2 weeks, if people didn't catch that, because it's got roughly a 2-week incubation period. There's a couple other things that are a little bit disturbing about it. A, that there's asymptomatic transfer, which is to say you can be a carrier of the virus and not have symptoms. And one of the differences between this and some of the other scary viruses that have popped up in the last few years is a lot of them, Ebola in particular and the SARS, they were very lethal and it was not a question whether or not you had them, right? It was very clear because you started to bleed from your eyes and things like that. So, and with the sudden acute respiratory syndrome, which is what SARS was, sudden acute respiratory, immediately hits you. You knocks you down, gone. So this one where it incubates for a couple weeks and you don't know, this is what's made containing it so difficult. They've shut down so much of China. They're saying that there's less cases in China. To the degree that I believe the Chinese government is pretty limited. But given that, it's now spread to, at last date, 33 different countries. The cases are nearing 100,000. The cases in the U.S., depending on who you ask, either the CDC or the president, are either in the teens or the mid-50s as of today. Again, this is in a couple weeks when we're kind of on the show pattern now. We'll probably ramp up, by the way, show frequency now that we're moving into election season. So, let's see. Yeah, there's the spread. This apparently in the South Korean church, and I guess I don't know if things are going nuts in Japan yet, their case, but apparently in the South Korean church, where a lot of it spread, it's a Christian church, but I guess like they think the person who runs it is the new Messiah. So, and every time he says something, they all scream "Amen," and they're all packed into this really small area. And again, apparently, so they're all packed in this really small area. And then they just scream this, and they say, "Amen, amen, amen." And if you say that, so they're spitting on each other for hours on end, packed in this small thing. And also because it's kind of a secret church, and they do some proselytizing, and they're not supposed to, they don't have like a list of members. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, so that's what happened in South Korea, and it's still spreading. Apparently there's a U.S. service member who has it now. So we'll get more updates on this. The president tried to speak tonight. The stock market's lost a couple thousand points over the last couple days, dropping from, like, just to give you a reference from whenever time you may watch this, from 29,000 to about 27,000. The president's speech tonight was somewhat ridiculous. During the speech, the news broke that there was a new patient in California who had gotten the virus, and they didn't know from whom or where. Everyone around here is super concerned about Tokyo 2020. Yeah, the Olympics. Like, that's the thing, too. I heard him talking about that, too, and that just kind of popped up on my news feed, like, oh, we haven't made a decision to cancel it, and I'm like, whoa! And then it's like, oh, okay. They just had, this is what was odd, because they just had down in Brazil, Carnival is ending, I believe, today. And so now, and they had a case there, and I don't know how close the case was to where the celebration is, but apparently the guy had flown back from Italy. So if anybody had flown to Italy for Carnival, so it's interesting to watch this because, you know, we have the ability now. We live in somewhat of a surveillance state, right? In the future, where, you know, we can track where pretty much everybody. It's hard. It would be very hard to travel around the world without being on camera a number of times for pretty much anybody. And so we can start to build these. And it's not you build these databases. I do this all the time with, you know, millions of people, and, you know, track whatever aspects. This is on Facebook. I mean, for God's sakes, folks, they have like most of the people on the planet as a profile. Anyway. So you can track all this, so we get to see this kind of in real time, and we'll see what happens when it comes to the U.S. You already saw the fashion. We'll talk about a little bit more of the stuff that's been happening here in a moment, but just how quickly the president was like, well, we're going to shut down the borders, and those stupid Democrats are crying for good. And he's like crying, he's and he's doing this at this time. This news, I was wondering if he was going to give a rehearsed speech tonight, and it wasn't. And so it became really dumb, and he's claiming that, you know, there's only 15 cases, and most of them are all getting better, and it's well contained, and then the CDC is literally saying not that, and so Anyway, this will become a bigger story, I think, over the next little while. As of tomorrow, I think it's going to blow up quite a bit. Because having to fact check the president, and this is one of those things where the lack of credibility over the long term really, really, really starts to hurt. And you don't have the ability to communicate effectively, and it starts to get really dangerous. But speaking of that, the fascism update. So Roger Stone is in jail. He went to jail. He was the president's confidant, one of the people who's the go-between between working with the Russians, and part of them at least, and the president. Lied about all this stuff, got busted for it, kept going after the judge on Twitter, kept doing all these horrible things. Finally, they found him guilty. The president tried to intervene with his sentence, going after, again, the whole process. The prosecutors all resigned because Bill Barr, the attorney general, said, yeah, you got it. Yeah, look, I'm going to do this. And so you've had over the last couple weeks this real crisis of credibility in the Justice Department, and the ability to just trust that what they're doing, because it's so clear, because the president just keeps going after him, and Barr comes out and he's like, oh, it's impossible for me to do my job if he just keeps doing this. So the president does it some more, and more, and goes after the Supreme Court, and just saying that, just ridiculous things, and doing it in such a way that, again, you can't discount it, because time and time again we've seen that these tweets become policy. And the way that the U.S. Constitution is set up, the president, it's not like, oh, only if he means it, or if he's not joking, well, if he's not being sarcastic. You can't, these are texts, and the orders are there. And that's what it is now. Barr met with the GOP lawmakers yesterday. There was this thing about this FISA renewal, and they're talking about this just to give you an idea of how bad things are. The Trump administration is both claiming that the FISA laws were wildly abused, right, with the whole spying on them, which they still claim, which was never shown to be true in the slightest. But they still claim that it happened, right? This thing comes out and it says, no, that didn't happen. Oh, by the way, this one thing was kind of sticky. We probably should clean this up. The law is in front of Congress now, and the Attorney General saying, just pass it like it is. I'll take care of it. I'll fix it. Yeah, it was completely abused by the last administration, and it's horrible, but it's fine. Just go with it. And there's again this, like, which side of my face are you talking to? Because you're saying completely different stories. So the Obama administration completely abused FISA warrant to spy on innocent Americans, but we don't even make any changes to that law. Just reauthorize it as it is, and trust me, and I won't abuse it. Again, Barr's made it clear over the last few weeks, too, that there's no investigations of any political candidates without his approval, right? So we're not going to have any surprise announcements or whatever, but basically no investigations into Donald through the rest of this year. The president feels completely unrestrained now and knows that the Republicans are already there, right? And they've already okayed this. So he went back and he fired everybody, too. He went back and cleaned house and fired a lot of the people that you saw testify, the people who put their lives on the line now. And that's not a joke, right? The whistleblower's lawyer, they put charges against the guy for threatening to kill the whistleblower's lawyer. Now, the president has held up this guy's picture at a rally and said he's bad, go get him, and now they're arresting somebody for doing that. That's where we're at. Got that. Oh, for the impeachment, by the way, I don't know if I said this last time, but the 48 senators voting to convict the president represented 18 million more Americans than the 52 that voted to acquit. And the original population of the U.S. was, I think, right around 10 to 13 million people. So there's a larger disparity now in that 42-52 balance than there was the whole size of the country when it started. Just as a quick little trivia thing for you. The director of national intelligence was also pushed out. There was a a briefing to Congress, and what they did was made a little bit clear what had always been kind of the futzing thing. One of the things that I was so frustrated with Robert Mueller about was he would never come out and say, the Russians want Trump to be president, and they worked to get him to president. Even though that was the subtext of it, he would never actually say that. So somebody did this, and somebody kind of paraphrased a briefing that they got, knowing that saying, hey, he's doing it again. He likes the way Donald's going. He's going to stick with him, and he'd also like to help Bernie because he thinks, and we'll talk about that in a second. So one of the the assistants there, I don't remember exactly her name, gave this briefing to Congress. Now, the acting director of national intelligence could only serve for like 200 and something days before they have to go to the Senate for confirmation. So instead of waiting another couple weeks for this guy, they pushed him out immediately and replaced him with this other guy who was the ambassador to Germany. He's been in trouble in Germany because he keeps trying to bring far-right nationalist parties into the power and really just kind of screwing up things over there. He's on record for saying that we need to turn our embassies into marketing opportunities for U.S. companies as opposed to, monitoring what the heck's going on in the country where they exist or trying to understand it. This is the kind of thing where you have this loyalist being put in these higher positions, and so now there's no adults in this, and you have this person with full access to all intelligence trying to. So they're saying they're going to try and put him in front of the Senate. We'll see how this goes because he's got a number of foreign entanglements that are sketchy. So, like the president. So that's where we're at this month in fascism. The Supreme Court said that it's okay. Well, so what happened a while back, this was in 2010, there were some kids playing on the border between U.S. and Mexico. They had run across and were going back, basically fucking with Border Patrol. There were some rocks thrown. Border Patrol guy sees one of the kids hiding, shoots him in the face, and kills him. There's an investigation on the U.S. side. We decide there's no crime. We're not going to do that. Mexico's like, well, we need to extradite him. This is murder. We'd like to try them. U.S. says no. And now they went through the court case. Well, the parents would like to sue somebody for this. Can we do that? And the Supreme Court ultimately came down and said, no, you can't. There is going to be no repercussions, period, whatsoever, for the murder of a child across the border. With what's all been going on the border, to now have this become officially what the U.S. Constitution says, it's going to be bad. And you'll see some more repercussions coming from this, I think. Basically what this is saying is you could just set up, machine guns and mow down the caravans. And that's cool. Solve it diplomatically. There's no legal problem there. Which is just horrifying to me. There's a great piece on NPR this last week, and it's a book that's coming out. And I believe the guy's name is Adam Cohen. You'll have to look at it. I don't know the title of it. But it talks about the Supreme Court for the last 50 years. My whole life, I've never not had a conservative at the head of the Supreme Court. My whole life. So it's been 50 years that the conservatives have controlled it, and they stole it by whatever. LBJ screwed up. And they talk about this in the story for the Chief Justice. And then Nixon came in and appointed a bunch of justices. And then we got all the way and fought all the way to Obama finally having that open seat. And then McConnell stole it. And that was the seat that would have switched it. So it would have been the first time in my lifetime that we didn't have a Republican Supreme Court. But that's not what happened. McConnell stole the seat. And so the conservatives have owned the Supreme Court for 50 years now. And people don't realize quite what that's done to the country, because when there was the 60s but then the tightening of the corporate power and the inequity, these are all Supreme Court decisions over little ones over, and the cumulative effect is what we have now. And that's what the book, it's a good book. I might pick this one up and read through it real quick just to get a better understanding of it, and then I might read back to you. So anyway, Democratic primary. So who's going to take this guy on? Oh man, this is just like, what the... So I've told you, and I'll be clear, my preferred candidate and who I've voted for was, and actually my ballot self says I'm going to turn it in. I might go canvass this weekend to get other people to vote for Super Tuesdays next week, a week from yesterday. Warren is the person that I support. And I do that, and I've talked about it. I've got a whole video about it. Basically because I think she's the best one to bring together the left, and I think once you do that, then we can beat Donald pretty easy. I don't think that there's another candidate that can really do that other than maybe Biden. I think would be probably the second best. Which after the debate the other night, he actually did a lot better. And we're about to have South Carolina, which he guaranteed to win. So if he doesn't win South Carolina, there's a decent chance that Biden's not going to be around for too much longer, which then makes things even weirder. What's been surreal about this is the Bloomberg effect. We have gotten here at our house for basically every day, last couple of weeks, a direct mail piece from Bloomberg. He's on every TV, radio station. When you're spending $500 million already, it's 10, 20 times, 50 times as much as other folks. Biden was like trying to do this thing where he's buying an ad, and it was like a 6-figure ad buy in South Carolina. And that's like a couple hours of Bloomberg's budget. I mean, social media people, just money everywhere. And it's a little disturbing, I have to say. And my thing goes back, I actually read another piece today. I lived in New York when I was around the turn of the century with the Iraq War and the 2004 election, which was pretty backbreaking for me, pretty soul-breaking. But part of that was the Republican National Convention was in New York City that year. Like it was like a 9/11 convention. It was really kind of disturbing to see, especially because this was, right after we'd just gone into Iraq. And it was like, why are we in Iraq? 9/11! What the fuck? And remember, and Bloomberg was all over it. He loved it. He was a Republican then. Remember, he ran as a Republican to go in New York. And he was like, well, a Republican in New York is a Republican in New York. And I'll say this, man. Like, racism is not just part of the South. And it's a different kind of racism up north. But anyway, I got to see it in New York, so I was paying pretty much attention. Anyway, so I'm not a big fan of Bloomberg. I don't know that I will vote for him if he wins the Democratic nomination. We'll see. He's probably going to plummet here in the polls in the next little bit because he did horrible in the debates, and the difference between what he's portraying himself as and what he actually is just money, and it's like, come on. The all-powerful dance. Bernie and electability, I was going to talk about that. Oh, I do think Biden might surge if he does all right here in South Carolina. We'll see. This is one of the things, though. Bloomberg is the person that Bloomberg really knocked out in the polling was Biden. And if you look at the way that those two graphs go, because Biden doesn't have that money, because Biden has to go to people like Bloomberg to get that money, and Bloomberg's been going to those people and saying, don't give him the money. I got this. Save your money. And so Biden, I don't think has a lot of money. I think Klobuchar has the same problem. Buttigieg, I think, is doing a little bit better because I think he got in a little bit early. But Warren and Sanders are both fine because generally they're doing a more people-powered campaign where they're not trying to get this big money, so they're not worried about it. I don't think people and our corporate media does a very poor job of describing the difference between that because they just kind of treat everything like a gimmick. Can Bernie win? Yeah, Bernie can absolutely win. But what Bernie has to do is figure out when he's going to decide that he wants to win and that he knows who he needs to have on his side to win. Now, here's the problem that he's got. Because he's trying to take out, still throwing ads out there right now about the Democratic establishment, and I got to take on them, and I got to take on the Republicans, and I got to take on the Democrats, and your mama, and it's like, well, wait, you're taking on way too many things here. And the Democratic establishment, there was a great point. I was listening to a guy the other day, and I wish I could remember who it was, but he was talking about the difference between the movement candidates and the establishment candidates. or the establishment itself and the people who've been around. And the establishment is always going to come around and get on with the movement candidate if they can win, and they can show that they can win. And if he can and show that, then because that's how and why they are the establishment, because they've been around long enough and established themselves and put in the work and taken the time. The movement people, as we saw in 2016, are the ones who don't join with the establishment candidate. And that's where you got the bros continuing to stab the DNC at the convention, walkout, all that people. You know, they got in, they had passes, they were welcomed in and did that. And so, anyway, I hate seeing like this bashing of the DNC because it doesn't make sense to me in a sense, because you're always going to have some organization that acts as an organizing committee between state parties, because again, our republic kind of requires that. And to be able to say, well, we're all going to work together to nominate this person, you have to have some agreements there. And so you have to have organizational people, you have to have trust, you have to have people, you have to have whatever you're going to call it. Something has to exist in that space. Now you can say, well, that thing has become too large and powerful. Certainly, I can see arguments along that line, but arguing against the existence at all of that kind of organization just to me seems, come on. Give me good answers that make sense. I got to see, moving on, the movie Parasite recently. Parasite it's a really good movie. The guy's other work is awesome. If you've not seen Snowpiercer, that is also a wonderful movie and a lot of fun. But I did get to see Parasite, and it's just the way the story unfolds is great. The way the story is told is wonderful. If this was an American film, it probably would have started off with, I don't know if I want to do any spoilers, if it's too late now or too early, whatever. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Can we talk about the plot? But anyway, it's about income inequity. That's what I thought. And to me, that was pretty telling, because I'd been for all of last year, I was like, this is the year of income inequity. This is what we need to talk about. This is the problem that is at the root of everything in our society. And then that wins Best Picture. And the thing about it is, because I looked this up, because I was curious, because I know that in South Korea, as we're seeing now, they have a pretty good health system. They have universal health care. So, you know, all those folks in the movie, if they got sick, they could have gone to the doctor, and they wouldn't had to pay $1,000. If they had a toothache, they could go get it checked out. So it's fun. It's funny to think about that while you're reading the movie. Again, one of the movies in our society shows about that same thing was Breaking Bad. Remember, the guy got cancer and he got this huge bill. And he was like, "How can I pay for this other than making meth?" That's the U.S. Anyway, so what I'm getting to, there's this measure of income inequity and inequity in a society, and I have to do a little bit more reading about it so I can explain it a little bit better, so I can tell you what we're looking for here. But it's a scale, and I like the scale a lot because it's a scale from 0 to 1, right? And it's called the Gini coefficient. And the question is how unequal wealth is in a society. And at 0, right, where there is no inequality at all, right, on this scale, this is essentially perfect communism. Bernie would love it. No, I'm just kidding. But where everybody has exactly the same amount of stuff, right? Everybody's perfectly equal. Everybody gets the same stuff. And at 1, that would be like how one person would own everything and nobody else had anything. So that's a scale, right, on that, from one person owning everything to everybody being perfectly equal. Now, on that scale, currently in 2018 in South Korea, the Gini coefficient was 0.35, right? So you got a scale going up to here to 1, right? And 0.35, right about there. The U.S. is a 0.49. Now, that's actually a fairly significant difference. As a whole tenth of a point on that scale is actually, that's national health care. So anyway, I thought that was a fun point about that movie. I liked the movie a lot. I thought it was great. It's kind of actually almost a simpler story, and it's just told really well and really fun. So if you do get a chance, watch the movie. It's great. Like I said, those families really wouldn't have interacted much in the U.S. Certainly not living together. We do things differently here. So I got to talk to Mike Bennett this last week, and I screwed this up. It's one of those things I've been kicking myself like over and over for this, because I went to his town hall. He's the senator here, one of the senators here in Colorado, and he's a Democratic one. And I asked him a question, and it was a question about abortion, and the bills actually died today. And he was like, "Yeah, I've been real clear on this my whole career. Thanks for asking." Blah blah blah. And I was like, nah, that was a bad question to ask. And what I should have asked him, because everybody there was like, what are we going to do about the Senate? Like, how are we going to get anything done? It's all this talk, but, we can't. And Mitch McConnell. And so, there was a number of folks who had a pretty good grasp on things. I think most people don't talk. I think some of the people who talk in these town halls, go to some and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a distribution of intelligence and public speaking across the human species. And I get made fun of this for all the time. I have a bunch of people on my other video constantly give me a bunch of crap. So I'm, not going to pat myself on the back a whole lot for this. But I do think I'm somewhat coherent at times, right? I can make a point and move on to a subject coherently. And some people, wow, they just... Anyway, so what I should have asked Mike Bennett about was Cory Gardner. Because Cory Gardner is promoting his bipartisanship and how much he's worked across the aisle with people like Mike Bennett. And I want Mike Bennett to be like, Cory, you've been lying, you've been cheating, and we want you gone. And that's what I wanted to ask him, and to challenge him, say, hey, Mike, can you help whoever's going to win the Democratic primary here in Colorado unseat Cory Gardner? Can you start holding Cory to account for his support of Trump? And this was like the day before Cory was down in Colorado Springs, up on stage with Donald, telling what a great guy he is for putting the kids in cages and taking money from the military for his wall, I guess. I didn't watch it. Cory, and it's tough to watch. And so that's one of those things where this is one of the big battles that's going to come up for this election cycle. And I would have liked to have seen Bennett, because he can fight and he gets mad at this stuff, but I want to know that it's real, right? That it's actually, he's going to take it to the guy who needs to have it taken to, because I have a feeling they're actually probably kind of friends and get along pretty well, because he's not going after him. And that's what I'd like to see. Again, the reason I like Warren is because I want to have a fighter. I want to get somebody out there getting some fighting, but that fighting for me is rhetorical. This is where you write it down, where you put your thoughts. The fight, sticks and stones break bones. Words never hurt, right? I know that not everybody thinks that, and the way that the online talk has gone. This is what I'm going to try and teach my kids, though, that you need to learn how to just accept and understand what people are saying and where they're coming from. My kids are starting to understand that when people are hurt and angry, that's where hurt and anger comes from, right? And, to be able to not have to respond in kind. So, because I do a lot of combative things, I definitely hurt a lot of feelings. I know this. But I'm not beating people to death because they're in a different religion. And that's what's happening in India right now. I'm going to transition a little bit. But the thing that most disturbs me about this, and there's been a lot of sectarian violence in India because they have a new law that is turning, because Modi, who's the president of India, is a Hindu nationalist, which is to say he's combining pride for a country with religion directly. Like, no question. The president of the United States was just there, and he's really pissed because everybody doesn't think the trip was awesome. But anyway, he praised him for his efforts. The president of the United States praised the president of India for his efforts on religious freedom when he's trying to ban religion in the country and turn the country into a specific religious state. And that's the thing, and the reason why he's endorsing this is because that's what he wants to do. This is Bannon's plan. This is, again, I've talked about this for the whole time about the show. This is the dystopia we want to avoid, is where the international order is realigned along, like, ethno-cultural and religious lines. We want it to be on values and people who share our values as a culture, not people who share our religion and our skin color. And that's it's a big battle that's coming, folks. It's coming now. And we got the virus. The virus will get you. All right, finally, to end up, I know it's been a long show. Oh, man, voice is giving out. Pardon. They found some more weird, the Golgafrinchians. So I've been reading the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books to my kiddos. And we went through the whole, if you haven't read them, they're wonderful books, lots of fun. It's fun, too, because there's not a lot of sexy parts. He actually makes fun of himself, and he throws in the F-bomb. I skipped over that word once in the whole series. But there's a story about how the Earth was populated by these kind of castaway extra people, who was it? Like telephone sanitizers, and basically people who do largely menial, somewhat useless jobs. A whole ship full of them. And they came to the Earth and interbred with the Neanderthals, and that's where we came from. So anyway, they found in some humans this DNA from a species of hominids, I guess you'd have to say, and they don't know where they're from. It's just like a new one, a new species that they found that we interbred with some time ago. They probably weren't from space. It's probably just another, because I haven't seen the latest on this, but it looks like there's probably 3 or 4 different, very close to our species kind of things that were there 50, 100, 200,000 years ago on this little rock. Always fun stuff to look at and look. And now we're being able to see into the past with the science of DNA and understanding, how things work. Good stuff. All right, thanks for everybody who dropped by. I appreciate it. As always, hope you have a great week, few weeks. Hope you get to vote. We'll see how things go for Super Tuesday. I'll probably do some short videos randomly here and there because that's what I've been doing now, and it's a little bit easier. And they're a lot better to promote. But anyway, so thanks. Peace out. Great week. Stay safe, and don't die on me, folks. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your support. Always. It makes it worthwhile.